In 1999, a mysterious disappearance occurred in the United States, which continues to intrigue people's minds to this day. An 11-year-old girl was left alone for 90 seconds and literally vanished. Years later, the police will find a bill on which it is written in the name of the girl, "I am alive." In this video, we have gathered all available information about what happened to Mikelle Biggs. This year marks 23 years since the disappearance of 11-year-old Mikelle Biggs. Her disappearance sparked the largest investigation in Mesa Police Department history, but unfortunately yielded no results. The most astonishing and terrifying aspect of this story is that the girl disappeared within 1.5 minutes. On January 2, 1999, the Biggs children were playing in their quiet residential neighborhood. They wanted to buy ice cream, but their younger sister decided to quickly run home for her jacket. It took her 1.5 minutes. And that was enough time for Mikelle Biggs, the older sister, to disappear. For 24 years, her case remains unsolved. In 1999, residents of Mesa, a small town in Arizona, were celebrating New Year's festivities. Families gathered around festive tables. They strolled along central streets. They bought sweets at Christmas fairs and rejoiced in holiday days. The city was adorned with bright multicolored lights and fragrant Christmas trees decorated with ornaments and silver tinsel. But on January 2nd, the festive atmosphere was disrupted by flyers appearing on poles and walls announcing a child's disappearance. Search. Help us find Mikelle Biggs, followed by her parents' phone number. Until that moment, such things had never happened in Mesa. Therefore, residents were very frightened. Moreover, as it turned out later on, the child disappeared near her home in an affluent area right before neighbors' eyes within just 90 seconds. 11-year-old Mikelle Biggs lived with her parents, Darian and Tracy, and her sister. On January 2, 1999, the girls were playing in a closed area near their home. Mikelle was riding her bike in the yard while their mother watched them from the windows. At that time, an ice cream truck was scheduled to arrive at their house. Mikelle and her younger sister Kimber found pre-prepared coins in their pockets, opened a gate, and started waiting. Kimber got cold, so she decided to run home for her jacket. When she returned, her sister was already gone. We went out onto the street to wait for the ice cream vendor. Mikel had his bicycle with him. I got cold and ran home to get my jacket. But when I came back, all I saw was Mikel's bike lying on the ground. I called my sister, but she didn't respond. Maybe she's playing a prank on me. I went home and told Mom that Mikel was missing. Part of me felt like something terrible was happening. The other part was sure that everything was fine. Kimber said many years later, Mikel and Kimber's mother reacted calmly to her younger daughter's words. She thought the child just got carried away with a game. After some time, she went to the neighbors. Maybe they had seen Mikel, but none of the locals could help her woman. They all said they saw happy Mikel riding her bike near their house. They didn't notice anything suspicious. The son of one neighbor suggested that Mikel decided to play hide and seek. He said he would quickly find her, but as he approached the Biggs family's house, he noticed coins lying next to the carelessly abandoned bike, coins that Mikel planned to spend on ice cream. It was then that Tracy realized something bad was happening and called the police. Within 30 minutes, search helicopters were already working in Mesa skies, while parents and neighbors were putting up flyers with a photo of Mikel and a description of her clothing: flared jeans, a red t-shirt with a school badge, and a small pendant around her neck. Volunteers joined in the search efforts. Detectives Butch Gates and Jerry Gissel took up the case. The police determined that it took only 90 seconds for someone to abduct the girl and began questioning people. Among their first suspects were neighbors, parents, and an ice cream vendor. Photos of Mikel were placed on most of the city's billboards. The police searched homes and factories, abandoned buildings and garages, mines and dumpsters. It was all in vain. There wasn't a single witness who saw the girl during those 90 seconds. The police also inspected all cars entering and leaving the city. The whole town was on edge. Police officers from the helicopter flying above announced through loudspeakers that they were looking for the missing girl. All poles in Mesa were covered with flyers featuring Mikel's portrait. I can imagine what her parents and sister went through. After all, she grew up knowing that she was the last person to see Mikel, said one of Mesa residents. The first suspect, as often happens in such cases, was the father of the girl, Darian Biggs. because he lied to the detectives during the very first interrogation. The man claimed that he was at work when his wife called him and informed him that their daughter had disappeared, but his alibi did not hold up. The company where Darian worked denied this information. Then the detectives found out that Father Mikel was at his friend's house. In his defense, Darian said that he was actually meeting with his mistress and lied to the police so that his wife would not find out about his infidelity. Father Mikel was tested on a polygraph several times. The machine showed that he continued to lie, but detectives allowed for the possibility that this could be due to his heavy emotional state caused by his daughter's disappearance and admission of infidelity. Kimber, Biggs' younger daughter, said that her father changed unrecognizably during the investigation. Literally, she described him as an evil zombie, and she no longer saw in him the kind person who once loved and cared for her family. Soon after, charges against Father Mikel were dropped. Firstly, according to their calculations, he returned home so quickly after receiving a call from his wife that he simply wouldn't have had time to hide their daughter. Secondly, if she had seen her father, she wouldn't have abandoned her bicycle or scattered coins. The police concluded that an unknown person kidnapped the girl. She abandoned her bike and coins. She ran towards home. All of this happened very quickly. I suppose someone grabbed her and drove away, one of the detectives said. After Darian came under suspicion by investigators, neighbor Blalock also became a suspect. By then, he already had 3 convictions on record. A woman called into police claiming that he severely beat her up. Detectives Butch Gates and Jerry Gissel arrived with an ambulance in response to the call. The victim only had time to tell them that all the bruises and hematomas on her body were the work of Blalock, just like the disappearance of little Mikel. After that, she fell into a coma and later died. The police arrested Blalock and searched his house, but they found no results. Even Blalock's wife claimed that he was home all day on the day their child went missing. Security officials could not find any reason for his arrest, so they had to release him. The only thing casting doubt on Blalock's alibi was a van parked on his property. Detectives were unable to obtain a warrant to search it. The man was soon sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of a woman. The Biggs spouses came to Blalock and asked if he was involved in the disappearance of their daughter. He answered negatively, but the girl's parents believed that he had stolen her. The parents were convinced that Mikel was in Blalock's trailer. Whether alive or dead, we do not know, but then we had only one hope that we would find out the truth, and it collapsed. Kimber confessed 2 decades later. In addition, an anonymous call was made to the rescue service. The stranger reported leaving the girl at an abandoned factory and gave its address, but the police found nothing there. However, law enforcement officers managed to trace the phone from which they called. The FBI identified and located the home address as well. Security forces promptly arrived there, but it turned out that a teenager who had nothing to do with the case made a call just for fun. Thousands of people wanted to help detectives and Biggs' family, but at the same time pranksters like this interfered with their investigation efforts too much. Parents and detectives received dozens of letters detailing Mikel's disappearance, only later finding out that another teenager sent them for amusement purposes. Over 5 years, detectives failed to solve this case. The investigation did not have any leads. In 2004, parents decided to hold a farewell ceremony for their daughter, and in 2018 hope suddenly returned to their family. A man from Neenah City in Wisconsin called Arizona police and said he found a strange inscription on a dollar bill. "My name is Mikelle Biggs. I was kidnapped in Mesa. I am alive." The police took possession of this bill so they could thoroughly examine it, but it turned out that tracking its movement was impossible. When parents saw this inscription, they were initially happy but then became filled with doubts. Firstly, there was an error in spelling their daughter's name. According to the family, Mikel could not have written her own name incorrectly. Secondly, the inscription itself was strange. Relatives compared the handwriting on the bill with their daughter's handwriting and found no similarities. It seemed like an adult was trying to write words as a child would, Kimber told journalists. On the other hand, if it really was Mikel, then it is unclear under what conditions she had been kept all this time. The girl may have simply forgotten how to hold a pen and write her own name correctly. It should also be taken into account that if it is indeed her, Mikel may not have had much time to leave a message and therefore made mistakes. Investigators were ultimately unable to determine where this bill came from or who left the inscription on it. The case of Mikelle Biggs is still unsolved. The parents of the girl divorced and moved to different cities. Kimber, who last saw her older sister before the abduction, blamed herself for not keeping an eye on her sister for a long time. She still can't forget that horrifying January evening. For a long time, she blamed herself for going home to get her jacket, but now she realizes that she would have been helpless against an adult kidnapper. The girl, like her entire family, is convinced that Mikel was abducted by Blalock, but without evidence, it will never be possible to prove this anymore, unless the perpetrator himself decides to confess in order to strike another blow at the family of the girl who got caught. A few years ago, Kimber gave birth to a son whom she told about his aunt's story. The boy calls Mikel his guardian angel,